Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Benos podcast. And today's episode is a strength and conditioning episode, and it features Roberto Iezzi from Brescia in the Italian league, as well as Eurocup. And today, with Roberto, we talked a lot about the dynamics from his perspective within the team, the dynamics between him and the head coach, him and the doctors, and him, and of course, the players. So the interpersonal relationships play a big role in this case. And we explored a lot of topics around that. So I hope you enjoy this one. It's got a lot of nuances, obviously, in my podcast, as it always does, and a lot of insights from inside the team's life. So please enjoy this podcast. Please subscribe to this channel. We need more subscribers also on the audio platforms. You know them well and probably better than me. And yeah, hopefully see you soon. Bye. Action, Roberto. We're recording. What's up, my man?
Hey, what's up, Benos?
Good to see you.
Inviting me.
Thanks for coming. We met. Actually, I don't remember how we met. I just remember our coffee in Montenegro this summer. But we have to give a shout out to Kostas and Danius. But I don't remember which one introduced us first. Do you remember?
Yeah, Danius. Danius was the first one.
In Jerusalem, right?
Yeah, exactly. I remember that I was listening to your first episode, of your show. And I went to Danius and I asked him, of course, if he knew you. And he said, yeah, of course, we are very good friends. You should meet this guy. And he connected us.
Okay. I remember Kostas told me about you before. I knew of you before, but I think that Danius, he brought it home. He brought the victory home. Danius says hello, by the way, everybody. So it says hello to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So today I have several topics for you prepared. For the coaches, as you probably know, I have 4 quarters, but for the head coaches, but for you as a coach in strength and conditioning, I also have 4 segments. I don't like it's, but the main concentration will be on team dynamics and some specific problems within your profession, and then we're going to talk about some off-court issues that may arise or certain other things that are around the topic, and finish off with ATOs. But as always, and just for you and for every guest, I ask, how did basketball find you first? So how did you end up being a strength and conditioning coach in basketball?
So first of all, I grew up being a big basketball fan. I grew up a little bit all over the country. I lived in 16 different cities and I'm 36 now. Sorry, 17 different cities and I'm 36. So that's a very good number. And when I was younger, I was a big basketball fan. I did my high school and my bachelor's degree in Udine. So I was a big fan of Snyder Udine, for those who remember this team. And it's pretty weird because everybody grows up thinking and dreaming about becoming a basketball player or an athlete in general. I grew up dreaming about becoming a basketball strength coach. So I don't know why. I was really fascinated by these guys working out players before games. And instead of wearing a suit, they were wearing just shorts and t-shirts, which I thought and I still think that is pretty cool. And so when I graduated from high school, I decided to pursue my career in strength and conditioning, and I applied for sports science, basically. I started my bachelor's degree in Udine, and after that, I moved to Rome for my master's degree. And after only 3 months, I had a call from Stella Azzurra Basketball Rome, which is one of the top youth clubs in Italy. And back then it was not as big as it is now. It was we were kind of the pioneers of Stella Azzurra, and the owner asked me if I wanted to have an interview to become the assistant strength coach. I said, of course I want. And the day after, I went to Stella Azzurra. I still remember the distance between the subway and the door of Stella Azzurra that I looked on Google. It was 800 meters. I still remember that. So I had this interview, and after a couple of days, he said, "Yeah, the job is yours." we don't have salaries for we don't have a salary for the assistant strength coach, but if you want the job is yours. Of course, I said yes. And so while I was still studying for my master's program, I started working as an assistant strength coach there. And I was the assistant for 2 years. Then the head strength coach left to join Astana with coach Matteo Boniccioli, and I became the head guy. I like to say the head guy, but actually I was the head of myself because I was the only strength coach there. And I spent there 5 more years working with some amazing players. We ended up winning 2 Italian titles, 115, 118. That was my last year. And after that, I moved to Verona. I had the chance to join coach Marco Crespi and work for a second division team. That was a very, very tough season for me, but probably the season where I had the chance to learn the most. I really learned a lot of stuff from Coach Crespi. I really learned how to be actually committed, precise, and how to be a true basketball, a true professional strength coach. And a lot of the lessons that I learned during that season are still lessons that I use and I take advantage of now. After that year, I moved to Torino to join Moncalieri Basketball, which is another big program in Italy for youth basketball. I spent there 2 years. We won an under 20 title. I had a chance to work with some amazing players, some great coaches. I had a chance to work with Marko Simonovic, who now plays for the Chicago Bulls, which is unbelievable. And after the second year, I received the call that basically changed my life. It was the summer. I was supposed to go back to Torino for my third season. And I was in Latvia with the under-18 national team, and I received the call from Francesco Cuzzolin, who is basically the godfather of strength and conditioning for most of most of European strength coaches. And he said, "Listen, there is Hapoel Jerusalem in Israel that is looking for a strength coach. I need an answer by tomorrow morning. They want to interview." And I said, "Okay, just give me 1 second. I need to call my wife." Back then, she was my fiance, and she gave me an amazing answer. She said, "Is this gonna help you becoming what you want to be?" "Yes." "Okay, let's do it. Let's move to Israel." That was it. So
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So I told Francesco the morning after, "Yeah, I want to do the interview." I did the interview with the guy at the GM of Hapoel Jerusalem, and I was lucky enough to get a job. And I spent there 3 amazing years. I loved the time that I spent in Israel. I had the chance to work with Oded Katash, who is a basketball genius. I love him, and I wish him best of luck this year with Maccabi Tel Aviv. And I learned so much from him. I really learned a lot of valuable lessons on how to manage players, manage groups, manage teams. Is big on that. So as I was saying, I spent there 3 years. I still feel a little bit Israeli in my mind. My daughter is she's not Israeli, but she was born there. So I really have a strong connection with that country. And after the third year, my wife and I decided to come back to Italy, and I received an offer from Brescia Basketball. And here I am. I just started my second year with Brescia. Last year we had a great season. We made it to the playoffs. Then unfortunately we had a couple of key injuries, so we didn't pass the first round. But throughout the season, it was amazing. It was an unbelievable season. And
yeah.
This is my story.
That's in a nutshell. Yeah, that's a lot of cities you lived in, a lot of different coaches you worked for, and working abroad always helps to gain a different perspective. Working in a different country with a different language, with different people, different mentality, it helps to advance also your thinking because you're looking at things from a different angle. But if we move on to the dynamics, especially working, for example, with Coach Katash, but also with other head coaches. I would want to talk to you about the dynamics with the head coach first. There's a lot of like the relationship with the head coach is very important. And like, I'm always interested and I was always curious to observe the dynamic of the strength and conditioning coach trying to convince the head coach about certain things, whether it's the intensity of practice, to tone it down, to tune it up a little bit. What challenges do you see most of the strength coaches go through throughout the season in regards to communicating with the head coach?
Yeah, first of all, you need to have the trust of your head coach. That's very important. That's key in our profession. And I need to be honest. I was, and I'm still very, very lucky because all the coaches that I worked with trusted me and trusted on strength coaches. So basically, I never had to fight to convince them about some ideas that I had about practices and stuff like that. For example, with Oded Katash, every day I was like, okay, coach, today maybe we need to push a little bit more. Today we need to push a little bit less. Or I don't know, today we need to sit out this player or the other player. And it was always, okay, whatever we need to do in order to have all the players available for games, we'll do it. I don't mind. I don't mind. You are the boss. That's what he used to tell me. And here in Brescia with Coach Magro is the same. He always tells me the same thing. The only thing I care of is having all the players available for games. Then whatever we need to do during the week in order to get them available, we will do it. If I have to sit out all the players, of course, I'm not gonna be happy. But if that's what we need to do, no problem. You are the boss. You decide that, and I will follow you, and I will give you my support 100%.
Yeah, does distrust between each other or from the head coach to the strength and conditioning coach, it can create a lot of friction, and it can deteriorate the process in many regards. So I think it's important to communicate certain problems that may arise. So I think there's also a lot of foreshadowing that's to be done in your profession, and it comes with experience. So the more experience you have, the more you can maybe foreshadow some certain problems that can arise as the season goes along. Have you dealt or have you heard of other strength and conditioning coaches dealing with certain specific problems throughout the season as well as preseason? Is there more problematic in preseason than during the season? Have you experienced any big differences in problems?
I think it's more difficult in season, especially when you play maybe once a week, because the more you play, the less amount of practices you have, and the easier it is also for head coaches to understand that rest and recovery are very, very important. I want to give you this example. If you play just once a week, then you have 5 days in a row with practices. And most of the coaches probably say, okay, they're not playing, they're not fatigued. Okay, I need them for practice. I need them available for practices. And maybe they don't see what I was saying before, that the ultimate goal is to have them available for games. While if you play twice a week or 3 times a week, like sometimes it happens in the EuroLeague, it's easier to understand it. It's really easy. Okay, we have these players that have played like 28, 29, 30 minutes a game. They need to rest. They need to rest because we have 7 days in a week. We have 3 days with games, and probably we have also 2 travels in between. They need time to rest. So it's easier for them to understand that. It's easier for them to understand how to manage the load during practice. I mean, it's easier for them to have like shorter practices, like 1 hour practices, 45-minute practice, instead of having those very, very long sessions, like 90 minutes or even more. So yeah, I think that the biggest challenge is for those strength coaches and for those teams that play just once a week.
So we had, like when I was working in Germany, we had this also 1 game a week schedule. We played most of the times on Saturday, and my father was running obviously the whole team, and we have this Lithuanian cycles are usually in 3-day cycles, right? So it was very unusual, and it took some getting used to by the players as well as by the management, that we practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday is completely off. and let's say 2 days before the game, completely off. Nobody's there. We just take recovery day. And then Friday, 2 practices, Saturday shoot around, and Saturday evening or afternoon, late afternoon game. And that was completely mind-boggling to some people early on. But then you could see the results because you were coming in fresh into the game, and the load management helped to recover, because the Wednesday practice in the evening was the most intense practice, and then you just have the recovery. Some guys went into a weight room just to go ride the bike, just to break some sweat as a recovery day, and then Friday picking it back up. But yeah, I agree with you that it's a little bit of a different mindset, and it's easier to do the classic load management when you have actual like games, with intensity and twice a week, and it's a little bit more visible, But are there any certain metrics that you use to convince the head coaches that can be helpful for strength and conditioning coaches to fall back on?
Yeah, of course, you need to be very specific, and also you need to share simple information with the coaches. They want to see maybe a graph or something that it's immediate for them. They don't want to spend a lot of time reading numbers or reports. They don't actually have time to do that. So what I like to share with the head coaches and the coaching staff in general is first of all the duration of all the practices, and then there is a graph that I use, which I call intensity, but actually it's not really the intensity; it's the density of the practice. So how intense the practice was, which is basically the playing time divided by the total time. Okay, I always have a stopwatch. It's very simple. It's something that everybody can do, but I always have a stopwatch to record the playing time of the practice. And over the years, I found out that if you have a practice that has less than 20% of density, that means that it's a really, really easy practice. If it is between 20 and 25%, that's a medium practice. When it's over 25, it's a hard practice. Over 30, very, very intense practice. And this is not something scientific. It's just something that everybody can do. You can't find literature about that because I did it. I've been doing it for like 10 years. But it's something that the coaches pick up very, very easily.
Okay? What do you mean by density? What do you mean by density?
It's the playing time for each player divided by the duration of the practice.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. And that makes the density. I like to call it density because I feel that it's more immediate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is one of the numbers that I collect. Then of course I have a lot of other metrics that I collect. We use a first beat. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a heart rate monitor that also has an accelerometer in it.
What's it called?
First beat.
First beat. Yep.
Yeah, and that provides me a lot of numbers that are really, really interesting. But those are not numbers that I share with the coaching staff because, as I said before, I have like 100 numbers a day for every player, and they don't care about it. They just care if that player is fatigued or not, if that player is going to be available the day after or not, and so on. So this is something very simple that I share. Another thing that I collect from players is the RPE. So basically, after every practice, I ask them how hard it was for you, and they have to give me a number from 1, which is very, very easy, to 10, which is extremely hard, and then I multiply it by the total duration of the practice, and I have the session RPE. And playing around with this number, I can create the chronic load for every player, and I can compare with the acute load of each section.
Okay.
And I can get an idea of what is going on during that day and during that specific week for each individual.
Okay, let's go into the doctors a little bit, the dynamics with the doctors, because you have metrics, you have data, but you also then at the end you do have injuries, which we're gonna get to as well, and then the doctors come into play as well. So how do you go about managing the dynamic and syncing up with the doctors during the rehab process? There's a certain kind of communication that has to be done. there is a certain agreement and agree to disagree, but you still have to go through some sort of process together. So what are the dynamics that you find yourself working with the doctors during the season?
Again, as always, you need to be lucky and you need to have like smart. No, I don't want to say smart, but educated doctors and physiotherapists. Like in Israel, in Jerusalem, and now in Brescia, we have like a great medical department. We have like 2 doctors, 3 physiotherapists. As I told you before, when we were on the line, we have 3 strength coaches. So basically, after every practice and after every game, we have small meetings with the whole medical department, and we decide what to do the day after with each player. And same goes for injured players. We have the head doctor that designs like a blueprint for the rehab process, and then it's myself and the head physio that create the programs within the blueprint that was created by the head doctor. And after every week, we try to reassess the injured player, and if it is a long-term injury, and we decide if the plan that we designed was good and we can progress a little bit, or if we need to step back, or if we need to stay at that level for another week. So I think that communication is key. Communication is very, very important, and like daily and weekly and also monthly communication, also delivered through reports, is very important in order to have players healthy throughout the season, and also to speed up the recovery process, because sometimes a player can lose 1, 2, 3 days during the rehab process just because of lack of communication. And if we are talking about a team, going back to what we were saying before, a team that is playing once a week, probably those 2 days won't affect much the final result. But if we're talking about a Eurocup or a EuroLeague team, 2 days, 3 days might be like 2 games, and those 2 games might be very important games. So
what are some things that could be misleading and missing, being the reason to miss out those 2-3 days? What are the things that are hurting in the communication process that are overlooked?
I don't know. Even for example, saying, okay, with this player, we need to move from. I just want to give you some specific examples. Like we need to move from isometric work to eccentric work or concentric work in 9 days. But if after 4 days we forget to reassess this player, and this player maybe is already ready, and we wait for the 10th day instead of speeding up the process and start after 8, we're losing 2 days. You know what I mean?
So who has to communicate that?
Yeah, the old medical department. So myself, if I think that this player is ready to move forward, I need to tell it to the head physio and to the head doctor. Have a meeting together. Maybe have another check, which could be, I don't know, an ultrasound, an MRI, or whatever the head doctor think is useful. And after that, we have the head doctor saying, okay, you were right. We can speed up the process a little bit. We can move forward. Or no, I know that the player looks good, but the images say that it's not ready yet. So calm down. I know that you're excited that it looks good, but take your time and let's spend some extra time at this where we are now with him.
So that's I'm trying to think, and I know a lot of situations that can arise, but I'm trying to also learn from your experiences, because there's some doctors, and contrary to that, also coaches, head coaches, or strength and conditioning coaches that are conservative. Some are conservative, some are more aggressive. So in terms of, because I love communication, so we're right at the topic where I want to be, what are the most common disagreements between the strength and conditioning coach and doctors that cause friction?
Sometimes it can happen that maybe doctors want to talk about strength and conditioning, and strength coaches want to talk about medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And that
interfering into each other's field.
Exactly. Most of the time you hear like doctors saying, oh, he's ready to do squat, but they don't really know what a squat is or what a split squat is or whatever. And sometimes you can hear strength coaches saying, I don't know, he can recover from ACL in 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, but it's based out of something that we studied or read, and it's not based on what the doctors see from the examination that they run with the players.
Yeah, it's also, there's dynamic, which I don't like, we're not going to talk about that today, but also when strength and conditioning coaches go into the coaching, into the X's and O's, or doctors go into the X's and O's, or sometimes the dynamic of a front office like there's a lot of know it all approach. It can happen. You can have your opinion, but still the experts are there to be experts in their field, and they have to, they're the ones who have to assess and make a judgment on that. And if we talk about injuries, and we talk this is what we currently most of the time causes the problems, right? It causes the friction. The injuries occur, and then you see not necessarily who to blame, but how to fix the situation correctly. So before the injury, though, with your experience, are there any signs, because we're going into dynamics with the players, right? You and the players. Is there any signs of fatigue or overload that you observe before the injury happens? Are there any signs that can be picked up by anybody in the gym that can be maybe taking the whole process into account? Not only that one day, but you already know the week leading up to that point where you see something. Are there any signs that catch your eye?
Actually, yes. Of course, we're talking about no contact injuries, because if we're talking about contact injury, that's something that can happen at any time and to all the players. Yeah, actually, yes. Something that I like to use with my players is a wellness questionnaire that I give them every day. So I ask them just 3 things. Just tell me your mood and scale from 1 to 10, your sleep quality, and your muscle soreness. Already knowing these 3 numbers, I can have a picture of what is going on inside that athlete, inside that human being, actually. And sometimes we can see that for 3, 4, 5 days in a row, maybe the mood of this guy is too low, or maybe the sleep quality is low and the muscle soreness is high. That probably those probably are signs of an injury that is about to happen.
Interesting.
And then also the coach's eye. That's very important. And nowadays, sometimes it gets overlooked, but the coach's eye is very important. If you're a strength coach, you need to be on the court during basketball practices. You cannot just stay in the weight room and do your thing there. You need to be on the court and focus on the status of the players during practice, because maybe the head coach and the assistant coaches are focused on X's and O's, like you were saying before, and they are not paying attention to small signs. Like, for example, I know a player that is touching his knee, and maybe he's touching his knee twice, 3 times, 4 times during practice. Hey, coach, this guy is touching his knee. Maybe we need to check him. Or maybe just go to the player and ask, what's wrong? Oh, nothing, I'm okay. Or, man, this knee hurts, but I don't want to stop. No, okay, let me take care of it. Let me talk to coach. Let me talk to head coach. We'll figure out what to do. We're gonna manage it. We're gonna take care of you. And this is very important.
Those are, like you said, that's observing. You have to be in the game, in the practice, and see not the basketball part, but the physical part. It's very important. And you, like, if the more experience you have, the more it catches your eye automatically, I think. But yeah. when you have a lot of relationships with the players, interpersonal relationships, because you have to gain their trust. They have to trust you to be able to also, for you to do your job properly. And it's sometimes hard to gain their trust. It takes some time with some more than with others. But have you found certain ways to motivate players during the season to catch their attention? Are there anything besides, like, energy or that in the weight room, but something that you can get through and break through their skull to get into their heads and hearts better.
Yeah. First of all, I'm a strength coach that likes to talk a lot with his players. All the players know that there is an open line of communication between me and them. And if it's something very important, but they don't feel like talking with a head coach, they know that that thing is gonna stay with me. Okay, I'm not gonna tell anybody. So they know that I'm there for them, and they also know that I'm not one of those strength coaches, even though I used to be when I was younger. One of those coaches that say it's my way or the highway. Okay, so this is my office. We do what I say, and that's it. No, I like to communicate a lot with them. Also, when it comes to designing programs, I always, for example, ask the players, "Is there any exercise that you want me to put in your program? Is there any exercise that you feel like you have to do during the season in order to feel well and to perform well? And is there any specific routine that you do before practice? And maybe you've been doing it for like 10 years, and you want to keep doing it, because at the end of the day, I just keep most of these players for 1 or 2 years. And so if they already feel well with something, and of course it must be something that I like, that I feel that is not dangerous for them, I'm okay with that. But of course, it all comes with communication. And so this is the first thing. Second thing, you need, again, I go back to luck, like I was saying before, but you need also to be lucky and have smart veteran players, hardworking players. And when I was in Israel, I was lucky to have the chance to working with Amare Stoudamire, and hardest worker I've ever worked with. He's a beast. He was a beast when he was playing for us. First guy in the weight room in the morning at 9 a.m. Last guy leaving the court. So that was making my job extremely easy, because everybody else was saying, okay, if Amare Stoudamire is doing this, who am I to not doing it? Same thing here in Brescia. We have David Moss. David Moss he just turned 39, and there are a lot of similarities between him and Amare. Again, he's the first guy in, last guy out, hard worker, never say a word, never complains. Makes my job so much easier with young athletes.
That's why those guys play a long time. I mean, even Amare Stoudamire, even after a devastating microfracture knee injury, he still played a long time. And I know, from experience, microfracture is nothing to joke with. So it's a lot of respect to Amare for keeping himself in shape and having a long career for that as well. But something that you said is also like things stay with you. Like handling information in our positions, whether it's an assistant coach that also has a certain relationship with the players, or the strength and conditioning coach and the staff. It's a very, very fine line, and you have to be really observing and knowing what needs to stay with you, and something that the head coach needs to know when the player's mind is not there, and we need to protect them a little bit in a certain way.
And then another important thing that I like to say to my athletes is that at the end of the day, we are co-workers. They need to understand that I am here for them. So guys, I'm here for you from 9 a.m. to whenever we want to finish today. And just use me, use my knowledge, use the fact that I'm here for you, that I want to work with you, that I'm excited to work with you today. And once they realize that, it's great. Like, I have players that come into the weight room every single day, even just for 10 minutes, but they absolutely buy in, and they work hard once they realize that.
Yeah, now that's something that you say also, that to get through to them and gain their trust and have their attention is something that you also talked about, I think, in your blog post about lifting on game day. So lifting on game day is just an example of trying to convince a player from, that has maybe a certain belief, or like some other example would be bad habits with certain things. How do you convince players after you gain their trust? But how do you convince players to lift on game day? Just as an example, just because you wrote about it. So talk to me about a little bit about that problematic.
Again, I need to say that I was lucky, because in Israel, the first guy that asked me to lift on game days was Amare. And here in Brescia, the first guy who asked me to lift on game days was David. So again, it was really easy to convince all the other players. But yeah, first of all, I tried to tell them, give it a try. Give it a try on during preseason maybe, or give it a try during a game where you know that you already know that you're not going to play like 30 minutes. Maybe you know that you're going to play 10 minutes, and let me know how you feel. And I don't want to say 100% of the time, but very close to that. They report feeling great from the very beginning. They report feeling great after the game. They report feeling great during the game. And once you have the buy-in of one player, two players, three players, and so on, it's easy to get a buy-in of the whole team.
It's contagious. Yeah, it's contagious.
It's contagious. It's contagious.
Well, why is it beneficial though to lift on game day? What's the specifics of that?
There are so many beneficial. Like first of all, it depends on where you live, when you lift during the day, because you can lift before the game, you can lift right before the game, you can lift in the morning, you can lift after the game. And if you lift in the morning before the game, you can actually have a good lift, like a very lift, because you can lift a lot of weight with a low amount of reps, and that helps your let's say your brain to be activated. Okay, you just work with your most of the work is done by your CNS, and you also have time to recover before the game starts. So that's when you lift in the morning before a game. If you want to lift right before the game and you are a high loader, so a player that plays a lot of minutes, usually you do I don't want to call it a mobility routine, but it's almost a mobility routine. So you go through a lot of movements, you go through a lot of movement patterns with some load. So it might be like a light dumbbell, a kettlebell, or a bar with not a lot of weight, and that helps you reach deeper positions and be more ready for the game. Actually, it's a sort of mobility work done with some resistance, and that is done by high loaders right before the game. If you have low loaders or young players that are not going to play, you can basically throw at them whatever you want, because they're not going to play that night. So they can also have a very good lift before the game. And if we're talking about post-game lift, which is something that I started to implement with my athletes 2 years ago, and the more I use it, the more I like it, can have, again, different goals. One of them for high loaders is to enhance and start the recovery process. Because if for example, we use low load and high volume, so a high number of reps, let's say we use a bodybuilding type of workout, even though we're not going to use like bicep curls, but just to give you an example of the rep range and percentages that we're going to use, you can elicit the production of GH, which is the growth hormone, which is the hormone that starts the recovery process. So this is just a way to speed up all the process. You can also use the post-game lift in a whole different way and think about the game day as a high-low day, and exploit the fact that the players are already fatigued to fatigue them even more and have a better recovery the day after. So, for example, you can expose your players to a good lift with a lot of eccentric work, which is, for those who don't know, like when you, for example, lower the bar slowly. Okay, like to lower the bar, you spend 1, 2, 3 seconds, and then you explode going up on your way up. which is a very demanding exercise. It's a very demanding form of lifting. It's a form of lifting that gives you a lot of muscle soreness the day after. So it's something that usually you try to avoid the day before a game. But it's something that is already happening during the game of basketball. So it already happened during the game. So you can decide, okay, this guy already had a lot of eccentric work during the game. I try to add a little bit extra after the game. So this day is a very, very high load day, and tomorrow it's going to be a very low day with a recovery or maybe a day off. So this is another way of using it. Or you can decide to work out the players that didn't play, and for whatever reason they didn't want or they didn't work out before the game, they can work out right after. And for them, of course, it's a real lift. It's whatever you have on the menu for that day for them.
Do you make a distinguishment for those guys, whether it's before the game, after the game? Is there like a certain, if you can put a percentage on maybe of focusing on upper body versus lower body, of what maybe stay away from the legs a little bit more and just focus on the upper body? Is that something that players tend to do more, or is it just 50-50?
Not really, 50-50. I try to keep it really 50. I try to keep it 50-50. And one important thing is that at the beginning of the season, I try to, no, even during the season actually, I try to leave the game day lift optional. Because I understand that lifting on game, actually the game day is a very important day for the players, is a very delicate day for the players. So I don't want to mess it up. So I just give them, going back to what I was saying before, I just give them my knowledge. I just give them a tool that they can use. I just try to explain them why I think it could be beneficial to use, and why they should do that or why they shouldn't. And once they try it, once they understand, they really understand why they are doing it, again, they buy into it. But if you just throw at them a pre-game lift or a post-game lift without explaining them the reason why they're doing it, and okay, you're gonna lift after the game just because I say that. No, that's not gonna work with players in general, especially with professional players, and especially with the veteran professional players. That's not gonna work, and that's not a good idea.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, it's modern approach is more of a discussion and consulting and helping, like you said, your colleagues more than anything. You're working together and you're trying to share your knowledge with the player and with the professional, and at the end help him. So whether or not he understands it, but at some point he should.
And one thing that I want to tell you is that, for example, if you happen to lift right after a game that you just won, there is a great energy in the weight room. You have the players playing their music, and you have the speakers like pumping music like crazy, and players yelling at each other. I mean, it's a great feeling after a win.
It's got to be. You probably would have to also monitor them not to overdo it at that point, because their emotions can take the upper hand on that. So after the game, I'm sure after a win, you have to also maybe calm them down a little bit, not to overdo it with the weights.
Yeah, absolutely. And after a loss, the energy level is a little bit lower, and usually you have less players in the weight room, but you still have players that do it.
Then energia comes in. So another thing on the players was the sleep deprivation that I want to talk about. What do you observe with players that are sleep deprived, especially after games or road games? You know, when it's a long after a loss, especially maybe they can't fall asleep. It's an intense night. Do you see, or how do you try to compensate and help them to overcome the sleep deprivation, because that can cause injuries as well? So there's some kind of proactive approach do you have for that?
Yeah, first of all, when we are on the road and we have to come back the day after, one smart thing that we try to do is to avoid red-eye flight. So basically we never fly before 8 a.m., which means that we never wake up before 6 a.m. to go to the airport. But most of the time, the flight time is like around 10 or 11 a.m. So this is something that you can definitely plan ahead, plan in the preseason, plan in the off season, and that's one thing that you can do for sure. Another thing that you can do, and here in Brescia we have a nutritionist, a very good one, but in other teams, for example, it's something that also the strength coach can do, is recommend a good post game meal to the players, because if you have a post game meal that is loaded in carbs, for example, that helps you sleep. Okay, it help you falling asleep, and it also helps the recovery process. But it's something that you need to take into consideration. And of course, you should ask your players to avoid alcohol after games, because that also causes sleep deprivation. And yeah, again, you need to give them the tools that they can use. You need to inform them. You need to educate them. And once they realize and that what you're saying is actually true, and what you're saying is actually helping them, they're gonna use the tools that you're providing.
So, but how do you go about it? If you go about informing them as you see it happening, or is there something that a platform you use where all this information, because information can be written down and given to them, is not necessarily will be read, so do you casually write the guys when you see them going into the wrong direction? Is it just a simple WhatsApp message? Is it something that you kind of talk to somebody one-on-one about individually, or do you give a presentation to the whole team about these kind of things?
A little bit of something, a little bit of everything. Sorry. Yeah, there is constant communication with them, communication on a daily basis, especially when we are on the road. And then we also, as I said before, we have a very good nutritionist here. That, for example, last week when we were in training camp up in the mountains, he spent the whole week with us, and he did presentations for the whole team 2 times, and then he tries to give a presentation to the whole team every 3 weeks. Plus, he has a individual meeting with each player every week. Great. And he's very good. He's very smart, and he provides the guys with all the information that they need in order to recover better, to sleep better, to eat better, actually. So again, we are lucky because we have a nutritionist, but I think that it's something that also a strength coach could do. Of course, it's not the same thing because we're not nutritionists, but we have a basic knowledge of about nutrition. So it's something that we can start doing, and yeah, we can help. We can also help our players with this process. But again, if you have constant communication, if you try to create presentations, meetings with them on a regular basis, it doesn't have to be something done once in a while. It has to be systematic. It has to be I don't want to say on a daily basis, but at least on a monthly basis, just to refresh the information. It's something that can definitely go a long way with sleeping better and recovering better and having a more successful season for sure.
Right. Yeah, I like that approach. I mean, it's always multiple people contributing to solving the equation, and because if always the same voice gives the same information, at some point it doesn't go through, and you have specialists for each area. It shows also the commitment by the club, by the whole team to have everybody in their area, the professional and the specialist, to explain the problematic that may arise. And players at the end, they want to be successful. They want to do what helps them to be better players also. So good guys, good professionals, good players will automatically adjust and listen to that. Just to move on a little bit, also to touch on your national team experience, what do you see the biggest difference in preparation with junior national team as well as versus the club team? Do you see any kind of, because it's a condensed schedule, and how do you manage about going through a shorter preseason with the national team versus having more time in the club and having more time to implement and load up the batteries for the season, basically?
From my point of view, or in
Yes.
general?
No, from your point of view.
From my point of view, basically with the national team, you're given just 5 or 6 weeks of work with the team, and just 4 of them are for the preparation. So the the main duties of a strength coach are just keeping the players healthy, just managing the load of these players, and just giving them just providing some workout again to keep the fitness level constant throughout the training process. While with the team, you can actually coach the players, you can actually train the players, you can actually load the players also, because you have a whole season in front of you. You have a preseason, which is 6 week long, and then you have 10 months of season. So it's a completely different approach, and you don't even have time to teach a lot of techniques, teach a lot of exercises, teach a lot of routines to the players that you are working with the national team. Again, most of the time you need to communicate with their strength coaches and maybe ask them, this guy, what is he doing, what he likes to do in the weight room, can you please give me some of his programs, because I don't have time to build a new program for him. I don't have time to give him to teach him a complete new approach, a complete different approach. So I just want to keep doing what you were doing with him, that of course was successful, because this guy is with the national team now, and try to build on that program.
Yeah, there's a lot of different cycles you can go through in the club, right? In national team, it's very much quick and condensed, precise schedule that you're on, and you know it's a limited time frame, so you have to really be as productive as possible in that short amount of time. You know, like you said, like during the season, you have much more time also to have a building a new relationship, you know, throughout the season. What's your experience with mini camp during the season? Because if the schedule allows it, towards the end, I know that some teams have a little like a mini camp or mini preparation period, not only just to freshen up their mind, but also to reload the batteries, as we call it in Lithuania, to recharge them a little bit after the regular season, before the playoffs start, for example, just to have a little bit more of a reloading process. What do you think about that, and what's your experience with this?
Mini camp with the national team, you mean?
No, with the club team before the playoffs start. A lot of teams have like a small preparation period that they go into, and they go load the players up to load them with a little bit more of intensity, and then in that regard to have them recover and recharge the batteries for the playoffs. Have you experienced that before? Have you heard of it being done, and the efficiency of it?
Actually, only last year, because we qualified for the playoffs with like 6 weeks in advance, and basically the last 4 games were useless for us. I mean, we already knew that we were finishing either third or fourth, so we had the time to load them a little bit more and to get them ready for the playoffs. But then I guess it didn't work, because we lost in the first round of the playoffs. But no, again, like I said before, we had a couple of key injuries. I don't want to use this as an excuse, but of course that's part of the reason why it didn't work. And yeah, that was the only experience that I had, because, for example, before in Israel, we were still fighting to for the either first or anything in between first and fourth position. So we were always fighting till the end, and didn't really have the time to create a mini camp where we were just focusing on the playoffs. You know, we
Yeah.
had to fight for the whole season, fight till the very last game of the season to get a good position for the playoffs. So the only experience that I had was last year.
Yeah, it must vary from team to team and from season to season. Each season can turn out different. You just never know. But I know this concept exists, and there's certain amount of efficiency that comes with it if it's you know, if the time is used correctly, and it has to really, everything has to fit in perfectly, that you have enough time for the players to recover. You can't do a mini camp for 3 days and have them dead for the playoffs.
Yeah. Then you also need It also depends on how the league is structured, because, for example, sometimes you have leagues where the playoffs start right after the regular season, and sometimes you have leagues where the playoffs start 2 weeks after the last regular season game, and it's a whole different story, of course. It's
Yeah.
completely different.
Yeah, totally. So let's talk about off season just shortly before we go into some off court things and your personal things. The off season training, how do you monitor the guys, and how do you hold them accountable when you're not around? You know, when they have to train by themselves at their homes before national team, before they come join a national team. How much oversight can you give before they come to the national team, and vice versa when you're with the club? And let's keep the national team players out because they're busy and it's a completely different dynamic to keep them in shape or to have them recover. But the players that are not on the national team and they have to join the club, how do you monitor them during the summer when they have 2-3 months off, 2 months off more or less, before they come and join the club again? How do you help them to stay in shape? How much recovery time do you give them? I mean, it varies from player to player, but I'm sure you have some sort of concept.
Yeah, sure. So with national team players, like I said before, I try to get in contact with their strength coaches, ask them what they are doing or what they were doing with the players, and then I try to reach out to the players and just ask them if they are working out, if they are in shape, what they are doing, if I can be of any help, if I can suggest something. But I can't really give them a structured program because most of the time I don't know these guys. I don't know these players. I've never met them before, especially young athletes.
Correct.
So I need to depend on what their coaches say and what they actually say. So it's a little bit trickier with them. While with our players, the players that play in my team for my club, it's easier, especially if you have athletes that are on a multi-year contract, because you can start creating an off-season program for them before the season finishes. And usually, what I provide them is a complete off-season program. I like to give them something between 2 and 3 weeks completely off, and then we start building up the load and the workouts throughout the summer. One thing that I found very useful and that I started to use 3 or 4 years ago is an application that I use, where together with all the programs that I send to the players, they also have the videos of the exercises. So it becomes very easy to coach them online, coach them even if I'm in Italy and they are in the States or wherever they are in the world. And for every exercise, they have a video. They can check the video, and it's very easy. And
which program you use?
It's called Team Builder.
Team Builder. Okay.
So that's how I work with my athletes. And of course, going back to what we said before, communication is key. I try to communicate with them, not every week, because I don't want to be annoying. It's their off season. They need to spend some time off. They need to enjoy their time off. They need to enjoy some time with the family. But at least every other week, I try to reach out to them. Just a simple message, a WhatsApp message. Hey, what's up? Are you working out? How are you doing? How is your family doing? Are you having fun? And just have a short conversation with them, just to get an idea of how do they feel, how they're spending their summer, if they're actually working or not. So again, I think that communication is very important on so many different levels for our profession.
For sure. At this point, I want to also give a shout out to Pro Pusher. I know, Justas and Sigis will probably listen to this, and Pro Pusher does the same thing, and has also some that exercises you can prepare, and the players can see and observe, and you can construct a program that way, alongside, monitor them a little bit. You said to give them 2-3 weeks off. But I have this concept in my mind. I remember reading somewhere after the season that players are better off winding down slowly after a long season, to ride a bike, to still kind of slowly give the body like an engine to unwind, and have some cardio workouts instead of going from 100 to a 0. Do you agree with that, or is there some that like a certain amount of 3 weeks that are like curving down, or how do you advise them to do it after the season?
I need to be honest. I like to tell them like take some time off. Like
Okay.
do whatever makes you feel well during this 2-3 weeks. Okay, if it is just laying on the couch, of course I don't like it very much. But if that makes you feel well, if you feel that that will help you recover, go ahead, do it. Because at the end of the day, we're gonna have like 2 months, 3 months to work on your physical abilities and on your strength and whatever. So those 2 weeks are not gonna affect the work that we're gonna do later on during the off season. So I leave them complete freedom about those
Okay.
2 or 3 weeks.
Okay. Before we go into my ATOs, well, I want to call them special lifts for you, special lifting exercises instead of ATOs. A little bit about your off court. You do have 2 podcasts, not only one. Can you talk about them a little bit? Because our hour is slowly winding down. But I before we go into that, the other questions, I wanted to ask you about your podcast. If you can explain to people what you're doing off the court.
So off the court, I have 2 podcasts. One is in Italian. It's called Idee in Ghisa, and I have a co-host, Andrea Giottoli, who is the strength coach of the under 16 national team. And it's in Italian. It's specific for strength coaches. So we only talk shop with other strength coaches there. Not very interesting for head coaches probably, but for strength coaches, it's very, very interesting. So that's one of the 2 projects. And the other one is in English. It's called Sport Vitamins. And there I try to interview like all the different professionals that work in professional sports. So I had a lot of strength coaches, of course. I had athletic trainers, physiotherapists, coaches, athletes, and like managers, whatever. Like a lot of different people that navigate around the professional world. And it's a project that started 4 years ago. Now I'm gonna start with the 4th season in October. Looking forward to starting the new season, and it's something that keeps me accountable outside the weight room, and it's something that also gave me the chance to meet a lot of different people, get to know a lot of different people, reach out to a lot of other professionals around the world. And it's really useful because for me it's another way to learn. Because for example, I like to read a lot, I like to study a lot, but listening to another strength coach or another doctor or another coach talking about their craft, talking about their journey, and it's something absolutely priceless to me, and it's something that gives me the chance to learn even more compared to when I'm just reading a book and sitting at my desk with a book, you know. So it's a completely different thing, but I really like it.
Yeah, that's why I like this as well, because it's much easier to learn interactively, right? Like learning while reading and writing down, like it's hard sometimes because it gets very dry. You know, when you're having conversation, you have some sort of dynamic going. You have examples. It sticks a little bit easier. Is there one thing that you can point out? It's hard probably because you talk to a lot of people that you can remember, like from the top of your head, like something that you learned that you never thought about from another strength and conditioning coach, for example? One thing right now that jumps into your head.
Yeah, one thing that most of the strength coaches have in common is the topic that we've discussed today, and it's communication and leadership. Because, for example, before talking to some NBA strength coaches, I've never thought about leadership being a very important feature of a strength coach, or at least an important trait that the strength coach should have. And once I started talking with these guys, and all of them were mentioning leadership. We're talking about leadership. We're talking about being, for example, a servant leader, or we're talking about leading by example and all this stuff, all this kind of stuff. I started focusing a little bit more on this topic. I started reading a little bit more. I started to also implement some things with my guys, with my athletes in my environment, and yeah, this is the topic that I think I learned the most from the guests that I have in my podcast.
Okay, all right. Leadership. You ready for your quick lifts?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. Power lifts. Best conditioning replacement for running.
Lifting.
Lifting. Okay. Best full body exercise.
Full body exercise. Okay, I like deadlifts.
Planking. Good or bad?
Good, but not everybody knows to do it properly.
Okay. More dangerous, jumping or landing?
Landing.
Yeah. If you can put a percentage on fitness, the importance to be fit: nutrition 1, exercise 2, rest 3. What percentages would you put on them?
So that's a tough one. I think 33%, each one of them.
Okay. Tough question. Welcome to my podcast. Best current book recommendation you can give. We always have like some recency bias, but maybe something current that you feel it's necessary to read.
Yeah, The Score Takes Care of Itself by Bill Walsh.
Okay, I'll note that down in the show notes on the YouTube channel.
Have you read it? Did you read it?
I haven't read it. No, I haven't read it. I'll take a look at it as well. Top 3 strength and conditioning follows. It can be people. It can be just strength and conditioning accounts on social media, whether it's Twitter or Instagram. What are the top 3 you can name off the top of your head?
Oh, wow, that's a tough one. But we're talking about social media, so stuff that is shared out there. I would mention Lucas Villar, great one, and Daniel Bowe is a strength coach of the New Orleans Pelicans. And then I would mention Max Schmarzel.
Okay. Best personal investment you've made?
Best personal investment? Getting married.
That's a good one. I haven't heard that one before. And one life skill you wish you had?
One life skill. Maybe be more patient.
Shouldn't we all be more patient? Okay, Roberto, grazie mille, bravissimo. You've gone through the gauntlet of the Benos podcast. You survived it, I hope. Tell everyone how they can find you if they want to reach out to you, and I really appreciate you coming here.
No, thank you very much. It's been a true pleasure to be on your show, especially because I'm a big fan of your show. If your listeners want to reach out to me, they can find me on Instagram, Roberto_Iezzi, IEZZI 34. And that's my account. Or they can shoot me an email, robertoiezzi34@gmail.com. I always try to answer to everybody. So feel free to reach out.
Perfect, Roberto. Grazie mille again. And I hope to see you soon again for some good coffee somewhere in Italy.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll see you soon.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.